Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Markstrat overview. If you haven't watched part 1, I would definitely go ahead and do that first, because you'll need that information as a foundation to go through this. Okay, so we're going to talk about kind of some of the major activities that you'll be doing, some things that there could be a little bit of confusion about. The first one is something we call a perceptual map, okay? So we as consumers, we make lots of purchase decisions based on perceptions of brands, okay? So we basically can take, different attributes. We have perceptions of these different attributes, and we use those to form opinions and, like I said, make decisions, okay? Challenge is that firms have ideas about how they want their brands to be perceived, but in the marketplace, it doesn't always work out as desired. And so companies have to do a lot of marketing activities to try to create this certain image or this desired image in people's heads. Okay, and so at the bottom you've got a perceptual map. We talked about these in our intro marketing class. And just basically you're able to physically map attribute or perceptions of brands, perceptions of attributes on a map, and it works out really well to help us kind of get a clear graphical view of what's going on. Okay, so the perceptual map is a tool that we use that allows us to basically visualize what's going on in terms of perceptions. So here we have a perceptual map. The solid dots represent the consumer or the market perceptions of the brands on two different dimensions. Within multidimensional scaling, which is what we're talking about here, there are three different dimensions: economy, performance, and another one called convenience. Okay, so again, these solid circles with the four-letter names above them, those are the brand names, and those are how each brand in the marketplace is perceived at this particular point in time, again, on economy and performance. You also have these circles with the kind of, two-tone circles that have the, names, high earners, affluent families above them. Those are the ideal values for the target segment. So your high earners are looking for a clinite with an economy level of about negative 10.5 and performance level of positive 10. Okay, so you can see here that the brands that are most in line with what high earners are looking for would be Tiny, Rich, Time, and Rise. Okay, so if your brand is way off somewhere in the middle of nowhere, it basically means that it appeals to no one from a perception standpoint. So the challenge is to try to move, change perceptions of your brands to get them more in line with what consumers are looking for. Okay, and so that's what this map is for, is to kind of help you visualize how well you're doing in that. How far away are you from things? Okay. In addition to these perceptual maps, we also have what we call brand maps. Okay. So instead of looking at kind of overall perceptions, we're looking at basically desires. Okay, so desires and basically how well do the different brands kind of meet these particular desires. So in this particular chart, we've got efficacy on the y-axis and we got price on the x-axis. Okay, so and again, it's the same concept. The closer you are to the ideal values of any particular segment, the better the product is received by that market, and thus the greater the chance they're going to actually purchase it. Okay. All right. So, like it says here, successful positioning requires kind of a long-term view and the ability to kind of anticipate what's going on. Segment ideal values kind of change. You've got to anticipate those. A new competitor enters the marketplace with a similar product. That's a challenge. There's lots of different things going on that kind of impact your positioning of your brands. Okay, you can position your brands two different ways, or reposition, that is, two different ways within Markstrat. The first one is advertising. So basically you can go into the decision screen for the marketing mix, go to the advertising section, and you can do what's called create perceptual objectives. All right, so basically what you're doing with perceptual objectives is you're basically deciding what you want your ads to say. We want our ads to focus on an efficacy level of 4. Okay, so the ad agency will create an ad that really pitches or really tries to sell the fact that your efficacy is at a level 4. Okay, so if it's done successfully, you can change consumer perceptions of your brand without physically changing your brand. Okay, and so these perceptual objectives are related to advertising research dollars. So if you want to increase the effectiveness of those perceptual objectives, you need to raise the amount of money you spend on advertising research. Okay. The other way to change perceptions or reposition brands is to physically change the brand. Okay. So this is useful when the change you need to make is pretty significant. Okay, changing perceptions a little bit is one thing, but changing perceptions a significant amount, like going from a low quality perception to a high quality perception, you can't just through words convince people that this low quality product is of high quality. So what you would do is you would go ahead and create an entirely new brand with attributes that are more in line with high quality or whatever it might be. And go that route, okay? And so that's how you reposition brands. Okay, so I've kind of talked about this already. This is kind of a graphical representation. Our current position is perceived economy of 5 and perceived performance of also 5, but we know that ideal values are 12 and 11 respectively, so we can create perceptual objectives in the marketing mix decision screen, set it equal to 12 and 11, and use that to try to reposition the brand. Okay, and this is how you do it. Just go into the decision screen, click on marketing mix, go to this particular brand, and then follow these instructions to help you set those perceptual objectives. Okay. All right, positioning through R&D. This is the other way. Again, if you need to greatly change perceptions or greatly change position, you have to physically change the brand. Okay. This is a challenging part of the simulation. People seem to get confused when it comes to R&D. So hopefully between the handbook and this, it will make sense. Okay. So the blue boxes are the multidimensional scaling elements. Again, the 3 we've already talked about a little bit: economy, performance, and convenience. We've got our 6 brand characteristics. Know that price is strongly related or very closely related to economy. Efficacy and safety are strongly related to performance, and then packaging, pleasure, and usability are directly related to convenience. Okay, so you can create brands by understanding kind of how these things tie together. Okay. All right. So here, when do we do R&D? To create new brands or to modify existing brands that aren't really appealing to anyone. Those are really the only 2 reasons that you would use R&D. At the bottom there, it does say you can use it to kind of lower the cost of the product, but it's very expensive to kind of do that up front. So I'm not so sure it's the best strategy within the simulation, but it can be done. Okay. So how to create R&D? What you have to do in R&D is you create a prototype. Okay, so you don't create new brands through R&D, you create prototypes. Okay, so you specify the attributes that you want for this particular brand, eventually this particular eventual brand. And once you specify that, then you can create an actual prototype. And then next period, once decisions have run in that next period, then you can take that finished prototype and use it as the basis for a new brand. Okay? So you will specify, you will give this R&D project a name, you will give it an objective, and then you will set the levels of the 5 attributes that you want. You will use research to determine what it is the market wants or what the ideal values are. You're going to set these numbers kind of equal to that. Okay. Down below, you need to basically determine the expense of this project. I would always click lowest possible. Specify a base cost is too restrictive and it may lead to some problems. Budget allocated this period. Quite simply here, this is how much money from your marketing budget you're going to spend this period on this project. Okay. Once you've entered the numbers for efficacy, safety, packaging, pleasure, and usability, click lowest possible, and then click where it says run an online query. What that will do is that will then estimate 2 things. How much will this prototype cost? And also, once this thing is sold, it is created and turned into a brand and you start to produce it and sell it, what is going to be your unit cost? So in this situation, you see that the budget required is $26.50 and the estimated base cost is $6. Okay, and so what you'll want to do is ensure that the number you find here, you then place here, and that will fully fund the R&D project in period, whatever the existing period is. So that will ensure you that it's going to complete, and the next period will be available to be used to create a new brand. Okay, so we'll talk about R&D more later, but just know that this is where you're creating a prototype. Okay. Okay, so the question is how do you decide which, what attribute levels to use to create the prototype? Okay, and a couple different strategies. The first one is just do what the competition does. Okay, so benchmarking. If you've got a dominant competitor who's doing really well, one thing you can do is create a product that's just the same as theirs. Okay, that will generally cut into their market share and can be a good strategy. So you go to the market report in Markstrat, and you can see in this table here that it gives you all the attribute levels for every single brand in the marketplace. Okay, so if you're going after Xi-Fi, you want to create a prototype that looks just like Xi-Fi. These are the numbers that you will enter: 43, 48, 54, etc. Okay. All right. You can also, use this report. I wouldn't use this report. This one gets a little bit more complex. Okay, but you can see here that there is kind of this relationship between efficacy and perceived efficacy, which, again, probably don't need to dig this deep into things. Okay, the benchmarking is the best way. Okay. Okay. In the semantic scales report, which is available to you as well, you will get information about perceived levels of attributes for every single brand in the marketplace, and also the ideal values for all the segments in the marketplace. And the semantic scales come on a scale of 1 to 7. which those numbers are not the numbers you'd want to enter into R&D. You would want to convert those numbers into physical attribute levels, and here is the formula that you will use to do that. And we can talk about this later, but just know that you can use the semantic numbers to determine attribute levels that you then enter into an R&D project. Okay. Base costs, basically, I will say that just specify lowest cost. Okay. It will make the project a little bit more expensive, but it will ensure that the project completes in the shortest period of time. Okay. If you specify a base cost, it's going to work real hard and cut corners and could cause some trouble and some delays in completing. Okay. All right, the online queries we mentioned is how you determine how much budget you're going to need in order to have this, in order to pay for this R&D project or this prototype, whatever you want to call it. Another option they give you is to run a feasibility study. Don't do this. I would say never use this because it basically it delays the completion of a project by an entire period. And so with only 8 periods, you want to get your products, your prototypes completed and launched into new brands as quickly as possible. So I would be careful about considering a feasibility study. Okay. Modifying and launching brands. Okay. You want to introduce a new brand or you want to modify an existing brand, you use the brand portfolio screen. Okay, so you want to launch a new brand first of all. So you go in and you would create a new brand name. So this is going to be brand MIROR, mirror, I guess. You give it a role in the portfolio. Okay, and then where it says base project there, you want to create this new brand based on what project or what prototype that has already been completed. Okay, so you basically just click on that drop box menu there, decide which R&D project is going to be the basis for brand mirror, and then you click launch new brand. Okay, and that's how that works. Okay, if you want to modify a brand that already exists, so say that you don't want to launch a new brand, but you want to just change the physical configuration of an existing brand, but you want to keep that brand name because there is a lot of awareness and things built up, you can just do modification. So we're going to go in, we're going to keep the same brand name, we're going to click modify, and then we're going to specify the base project that we're going to use to create this new brand, and then you click confirm, modify. Okay. Be careful though, if you create a project for the purpose of modifying a brand, once you modify that brand, all the excess inventory that's left over gets dumped, basically. So it gets sold to a trading company, kind of think about like the Dollar Tree or the Dollar General, someplace that buys old inventory and sells it at a deep discount. So if you modify a brand, all existing units that were already in inventory are now obsolete and they get sold off at a loss. And so you'll lose some money, but it may be okay if the brand you're replacing it with is that much better. Okay? Know that there is an experience curve. The more units you produce over time, the lower the cost goes. Okay? So don't have to worry about this too much at this moment, but just know that over time the cost per unit goes down. Okay? All right, so the way the simulation works is decisions about R&D, decisions about the brand portfolio typically can't be made until period 2. Okay, so that comes up. The first period you focus on you focus on place, promotion, and price without worrying about the product portion yet. Okay. So everything else, can be done, from the beginning, but starting in period 2, there are some things that you can do in addition to what was done in period 1. Okay. So at this point, it's down to your strategy. You have to figure out kind of what your plan is and what you want to do, and go from there. So that's all we're going to say about part 2 of this introduction. There are other videos that you should watch. Make sure you do that because they'll be helpful, and they're a bit more specific than this intro, and should be really good in helping you kind of wade through this kind of ocean of information. Okay, so that's all I've got. Have a good day. If you have questions, let me know. Thanks.